Hello, friends. Why do vampires chew gum? Because they have bad breath. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. When I was 10 years old, I woke up one morning and my father was gone. I was convinced that something terrible had happened to him, and so was my mother. We drove down to the police station and reported him missing. The officer asked us a lot of questions and then took Mom into the hall so they could speak alone. I heard their muffled voices, but couldn't make out the words, until Mom said, in a very loud and insistent voice, "No. Michael wouldn't do that." A week later, we found that Dad really would do that. The letter was addressed to me. My dear sweet Cadence, I am so sorry to do this to you. It's hard for you to understand now, and I hope you never do. I hope you stay sweet forever, and life never grows sour for you. I know I have made it difficult, but I want you and your mother to forget me and move on and be happy. It is going to be very hard for your mom, and I want you to be strong for her, okay? Give her this check. I will send more money. You two never have to worry about that. I love you so much, and I always will, but you have to move on without me. Daddy. Life did grow sour for me, bitterly and quickly. Besides dealing with the pain of my father abandoning me, I had to watch my mother spiral into depression and alcoholism, and there was nothing that I could do about it. I didn't understand what was happening. I thought there was something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough. I made Dad leave and I made Mum sad. I would lie awake at night crying and wonder what the point of anything was. It was during one of these horrible nights that I looked out the window, and saw a woman in a yard, staring down a body she held cradled in her arms. I blinked and she was gone, but I know that I saw her. The bare parts of her body, her face, her arms, her legs, were so white that they glowed in the moonlight. I saw that she held a body in her arms, a full-grown human body, but it was too dark to make out any features. I screamed out, and Mum came crashing into the room, obviously hungover already. "What is it, honey?" "I saw a lady outside," I said, pointing to the window. Mom flicked on the light and squinted through bleary eyes. "It was just a dream," she said. "Go back to sleep." She drew the curtains closed. "It wasn't. I saw her. She's gone now, she disappeared." "It's the middle of the night. Go to sleep, damn it." Mom flicked off the light and slammed the door behind her. Things with Mom got worse before they got better. I spent a lot of nights with my babysitter, Darcy. We would sit on the couch and watch TV together, and sometimes she would let me watch a horror movie as long as I promised not to tell Mom. I liked those nights the best. The Thing was my favorite, and it fits with the idea that was forming in my undeveloped brain that sometimes people weren't what they looked like. You had to be careful. Anybody could turn out to be a monster. "Darcy," I asked one night, "does your dad still live with you?" "He does, kiddo. He's out working a lot though." "What does he do?" "He's a private idiot," said Darcy, and giggled. "Like, you know, detective. Like Sherlock Holmes?" "Well, not really. Mostly he gets dirt on people. Like if someone's cheating, he'll take pictures of it." "Cheating like on a test?" Darcy laughed again. "No. Like, stepping out." "Like what my dad did?" "No. Like, well, I don't know, maybe that's what he did, but it's like when a guy hooks up with a girl that's not his girlfriend or wife, you know." "Oh. I mean, he does other stuff too. He found that girl that went missing last year. That was a big deal." "Oh, I said and thought that over. Could he find my dad? Darcy looked sad. I don't think your dad wants to be found, Cadence. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Darcy. But do you think your dad could find my dad? I think so, said Darcy. He found that girl when everyone else thought she was dead. He's good. I guess he is a little like Sherlock Holmes, sometimes. Cool, I said. Can we watch a movie now? Darcy laughed. You sure about this? This one is really scary, lots of blood. Good, I said. We were halfway through when Mom stumbled in through the front door. Shit, said Darcy, scrambling for the remote. She was too late. What the hell are you watching? Demanded Mom. Evil Dead, I said. No, you're not. Mom staggered over and slammed the TV off. You, she growled at Darcy. Some nerve, showing my kid this shit. She's 10 years old. I'm so sorry, Miss Harris. It won't happen again. But Mom, I whined, I like that movie. I'm not a little kid anymore. Go to bed, said Mom. I knew there was no point in arguing with her. She was drunk. I just hoped that she would forget about it in the morning, as she did sometimes. I headed to bed, turning around to see Mom fling a couple of the 20s at Darcy. Then I lay there in bed for a while, jacked up from the movie and the conversation with Darcy. I decided that someday, I would have her dad find my dad. It was a comforting thought, and eventually, I fell asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling that something wasn't right. I got out of bed and opened the curtains, and there again was the lady I had seen before, looking down at the body in her arms. She was there for an instant, and then she was gone. This time I didn't scream. Life went on. When I was 12, my mother got sober and began to rebuild her life. Meanwhile, I started heading down a dark path that ended with me getting hooked on oxyce in my teens. Later in life, my friends would tell me that the blame rested on my father, but I'm not so sure. Maybe. I do know that I never stopped missing him, and, eventually, my pain was gradually supplied with mounting rage, at my father, at life, at everything. The drugs numbed it all, while they lasted. I won't go into the sordid details, but suffice it to say that my life was really shitty for a long time. And through it all, including the dreamy haze of drugs and the terrible nights of withdrawal, I would see the lady outside of the window of wherever I was staying. She came with less frequency as time passed, and I was able to convince myself that she was just a dream that I sometimes experienced in a feverish half-sleep state. With a painful and drawn-out intervention from Mom, I finally pulled myself together in my early 20s and charged ahead with my own life. College, then law school, then husband, then 2 kids and a white picket fence. I ended up in a good place. One night, I was settling into bed after a long day of litigation, sipping a glass of wine and reading through the news on my phone. My husband, Alan, was already asleep, breathing heavily. I heard a scream coming from the boys' room, leapt out of bed, and rushed down the hall. I swung the door open and Max, my 4-year-old, was pointing towards the window. Mom. Someone's there. A girl. I looked out, but there was nobody there. Was she holding a body? I asked, my heart up in my throat. Yes, said Max. Cadence. I turned around and there was Alan standing in the doorframe. A word, he said. I'll be right back, honey, I said to Max. Don't be scared. Alan and I walked back to our bedroom and closed the door. Jesus Christ, honey, why would you tell him about your nightmare? I didn't tell him anything, I said. She's back. The cameras were Alan's idea. I think it was just to prove that we were imagining things, but that's not how it turned out. The next night, when Max started screaming again, we calmed him down and then checked the footage. The lady was nowhere to be seen, but the body was, apparently floating in midair. We zoomed in on the face. It was blurry, and he was improbably old, but I recognized him without a doubt. "That's my father," I said. "What the hell," said Alan. I called Darcy, my old babysitter, the next day. We had kept in casual contact, through Facebook and the like. After catching up a bit, I asked if her father was still a private idiot. Darcy laughed. "He is. He's planning to retire next year." "Why do you ask?" "I want to hire him." Oh. Is it Alan?" Now I laughed. No, Alan's a good boy. It's my father. I want to find him." Darcy was quiet for a beat. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said. "I met with Don Blake that afternoon." "So you want me to find your old man?" Darcy says. "That's right," I said, sliding the blurry photograph across his desk. Don picked it up, frowning. "There's more than this, I hope." "There's a woman," I said. "I see. And what's her name?" "I don't know." "Ah. What can you tell me about her?" "I can describe her. After all of those years, her image was burned into my brain. She always looked the same, she didn't appear to age." "Describe her? As in, you don't have a photograph, right?" "Right. I can describe her. You must have a sketch artist you can contact, Mr. Blake." "Say I do," said Don. "You want me to find your father based on a blurry photo and the description of a nameless woman. And that's it? Gotta level with you here, Cadence, I wouldn't be getting my hopes up. When I was a kid, Darcy would tell me about you. About how you found that missing child when nobody else could, not the parents, not the police. About how everybody had given up hope, but you kept working away until you found her." Don laughed. "That was a long time ago. Please, Mr. Blake, find my father." A week later, I got the call from Don. "Don't believe it myself, but we found your old man." My heart felt like it was exploding. "Oh? Yeah. Guess your mystery lady likes to frequent a bar downtown." My guy tailed her back to a house one night and parked it. Next day, a curtain opens, and there's your father standing looking out the window. My God, Mr. Blake, thank you so much. Listen, kid, I'm here looking at the photos, and well, your dad isn't looking so good, you know. I just want you to be prepared for that. And for well, I deal with people a lot, you know. I've seen it all. And if you really haven't heard from him for all these years, well, there's a reason for that. A reason you might not want to find out about. What's the address? Don gave me the address and I headed right over. A dozen emotions swirled around inside of me, as my mind tried, for the 1000th time that week, to make sense of it. I didn't know what was happening, or what had happened, or what would happen. I just knew that I had to see my father again. I pulled into the driveway around noon, got out of the car, and walked up the path to the door. I rang the doorbell several times, and then grabbed the knocker and started banging away. At last, the door creaked open, and I saw a sliver of darkness inside. The curtains were all drawn, and no lights were on. "Cadence," said a thin voice from behind the door. "You can't be here." "Dad?" I said, tears forming in my eyes. "Dad?" You must be very quiet. Can you do that, sweetie? Can you be very quiet? Yes, I whispered. The door opened a little further, and I stepped in. I only pray that the doorbell didn't wake it, said my father. He closed the door, and then I saw his outline in the darkness. Dad. I got greedy and reckless. I had to see my grandsons before I die. Dad. What is going on? I felt the hot tears running down my face. The truth then. We must be quick, Caddy. Just listen and then go, okay? Just listen and go. My eyes were beginning to adjust to the darkness, even though the welling tears. My father looked ancient, far older than his actual age. I nodded. Listen and go, I whispered. That night, I didn't see it or hear it, I felt it. I crept into your room, and there it was, leaning over you. I knew that I couldn't fight it. So I offered myself, in exchange for your life. It has been feeding on me ever since, keeping me here, only taking me out to see you, and now the boys. That arrangement worked for both of us. It delighted, thinking it was torturing me, and I delighted, in seeing you. That's all, Cadence, my dear sweet Cadence. You must go now, or it will all be for nothing. I sensed the danger, and I knew that I couldn't hold back from crying out for much longer, but I had to hug my father one last time. I wrapped my arms around his frail body and pressed my face against his, our tears running down each other's cheeks. Then I left. I got in my car, drove around the block, and parked. I let it wash over me. The horror and love.